marriages. What do watching sexually explicit videos do to a marriage? Is it good? Is it bad? Can it spice things up? Please welcome Dr. Karyn Gordon, who's here to talk about it with us. We thought about this because people are talking about it all the time. People are talking about it, yeah. It happens, and we actually threw it out there to our viewers. Do you do this? What do you think of it? Yeah. We got quite a bit of reaction on Facebook. This from Heather. Yeah, I like to watch as much as my hubby. Sometimes I watch alone when he's not here, and he watches it too. I think a good relationship means you're honest and open with each other. We had Crystal say, nothing wrong with them. Watching together or alone is fine. Then we had Marianne say, disgusting. Yeah. That's how she feels about it. How did our audience feel about it?
So very interesting. I'll be kind of sharing the stats throughout the segment, but 64% of our audience actually think it's a good idea.
Okay.
64%. So there's definitely a move. Now, that is going to drastically change when we're talking about one person. But when we're actually talking about the benefits around this, 64% actually say it's a good idea. So here's what I want to do, really start off the conversation, that as a marriage counselor, this comes up all the time in my office.
Oh, nice.
And so one of the things I try to be very clear about is that I'm not going to say it's good or bad. I'm going to present the information. Everybody has to have their own, you have to be your own critical thinker.
Right.
Okay, it's very important that I'm not going to be biased on either side of this. So
you have to figure out what works for you in your marriage.
You really do. And this is a hot potato topic. So some of the benefits, okay, and so this is probably, in terms of the response we got on Facebook and Twitter, also here in our audience, is that for sure people are saying it's exciting, spices things up, especially if you're kind of doing the same thing over and over again. It kind of gets everything opened up. It also opens up communication, so people will kind of watch something and all of a sudden they're like, "Ooh, I like that. Do you like that?
Let's try that.
Let's try that.
What are they doing?
Right, never seen that before. What is going on? What is going on there? What are they doing? Right, so it can kind of really open up the conversation. And then also I've heard this from a number of women in terms of it kind of gets their libido going.
Right.
If you've kind of been kind of at a flat stage, you need something almost as a reboot. And so I've had some clients who are actually, they've started that just to kind of get them going. So that's part of, I think that's pretty consistent in terms with what are the advantages.
Okay, so there are, some good things involved in this, although I can already see the other side of some of these arguments, because if you're using it as something to get your arousal going, what happens when you cannot be aroused without it?
Exactly.
Because that must be a problem for some couples as well.
Yes, and so there are, and just to kind of give a little bit of stats in terms of, so 80% of men will watch, 55% of women. So this is not a men thing. This is women are partaking in it too.
Yeah.
And there were some studies actually were done in terms of divorce lawyers when they were actually asked with what are kind of the main reasons why people actually divorce. And there's a number of studies that have actually said that one of the number one reasons is excessive usage in terms of watching either erotica or adult videos. So there is a dangerous side to this. Doesn't mean that everybody's going to go down there, but we have to kind of address that. So some of the dangers, and again, this is probably not a big surprise, but this whole issue around addiction. The stats are kind of they range. Sometimes people can just be watching it leisurely, that's fine. But between about 10 and 15% of people actually will be addicted to it, where all of a sudden they need it. This is no longer, oh, this is kind of fun. It's like, I need this to kind of get aroused. So that's really important. In terms of creating this sense of unrealistic expectations.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Right? It's kind of like,
because
I can't do that.
I
can't do that position. I'm not that flexible. Yes, exactly. I'm not that flexible.
This is what they do.
I know. Whoa, I am not.
I go to work.
Right.
I cook dinner.
Yes, this is just not really attainable. This is not attainable. And the other ones, for a lot of women, this is probably the biggest concern around, is that for a lot of women, they will feel like, I'm not good enough.
Yeah, I can definitely see that
good enough. You have to watch that. I'm not enough for you. And so for a lot of women, in terms of feeling devalued or not as much of a priority. And this is where the audience really shifts in terms of their opinion of this, which I find fascinating. This is why I love doing stats with the audience. So, 64% said, yeah, it's a good idea. But it radically shifts when we start talking about one partner watching alone. Then all of a sudden it goes to 83%, no, I don't either think it's a good idea.
Got it.
Or I'm not quite so sure. But it's a definite shift when it's one person. So when it's a couple, people are like, yeah, you know what, you just got to be careful about it, but I can still see the dangers, but when it's one, absolutely not.
So it's almost like it needs to be used, well, for our audience anyways, it needs to be used as a fun couple recreational thing.
Yes.
Rather than it going down the other road, which is, we need to have it, and one of you is watching it, and the other one's feeling, not validated, and like they're not enough.
And, obviously it's going to be challenging if one person thinks it's okay and one person's actually not. I actually posted on my own Facebook, and was kind of floored by the responses I was getting from my friends around it. And one of my friends said, absolutely not. It's like terrible writing and terrible production value. She's a writer, which I found was really
That was her issue.
That was her issue. She's like, it's so bad, I can't even watch it. Like, that's just, it's so bad.
She doesn't like the storyline.
She doesn't like the storyline. There's no story. Exactly. So she was like, absolutely no. And another one of my friends, which actually said, it ruins, what did she say? It removes the intimacy from a sexual relationship between a husband and wife if they're using images and outside of their bond to become aroused. And that becomes, again, do we have to go to something else to get aroused? Or can we learn how to do this?
Right.
I will say, as a relationship counselor, when I was doing my doctorate training, we had to obviously get trained in all of this because there's sometimes people need things to help them.
Yeah.
I'm not a sex therapist, but I know for a lot of sex therapists, they have to have kind of their library of different things to kind of really help people. So it is a tricky topic. I would recommend after this show that we talk to our spouse about it.
I thought you were going to say go watch a video.
No, I'm not going to say
We're not giving those away after the show.
We're not going to be saying yes. This is not
down.
that kind of show. No, but I think it's a really good conversation to have with your spouse. Like, what is our value?
Yeah.
Are we for it? Are we against it? If we're for it, why are we for it? What's the reason? And if we're against it, why are we against it? And kind of making sure that as a couple, we're really maintaining that sense of value.
I love everyone's candor. There are certain topics we discuss on this show, and I think we're not going to get any response from this. And everyone's like, oh, yeah, sure, I watch them. It's great with my husband, blah, blah, blah. I love the fact that you're honest about it and that we can keep that conversation going. And we always do keep it going after the show on Twitter and Facebook and what have you. So let us know what you think. Thanks, Karyn. Good info. Let's go to break. We've got more coming up.